So Tim, like many sales and marketing directors, you started your career in agency and have ended up a sales and marketing director. It'd be great to hear a bit of your background, your story into property that's led you to where you are today.
So I started, Simon, as a 22-year-old young negotiator with Fox & Sons, and it came about because I was living in London as a young lad and was finding it very difficult financially because I was living on my own. And parents had migrated down from London to Wiltshire a couple of years or so earlier and had badgered me to probably take a leap of faith and get a job in their locality. And so I saw an advert for Fox & Sons as a trainee negotiator and applied and was lucky enough to get an interview, but was completely thrown by the first question from the old partner because he said, do you have a good memory? And it's only in later life that you realise the significance of it because, we need a good memory for what we do because, it's relatively fast paced and it's really good to understand people, remember them, remember conversations, remember previous dealings to, create goodwill. And so that's never lost on me. And it's a question that I ask people now when I get to interview them.
It's good you always never asked that question.
Yours is not so good.
No, it's rubbish. Excellent. So, and then that was the start of your career.
It was, yeah. They took a punt on me, and actually I was quite proud because I went through a training program with them. It was really good in the old days. It was well before sequence were involved. And I was 25 and was able to be offered my first managerial position. And I think at that time I was the second youngest ever Fox & Sons manager. And what made it even more fulfilling was I actually ended up going back to Salisbury, to Amesbury for my first job. Wow. And so I ended up working with the people that I grew up with there as a trainee and managing them, which was a little bit daunting at first, but they kind of put their arm around me and made it all good. So it was a really good introduction.
Excellent. And then, so how long was your agency career with Fox & Sons and then straight into house building? What did that journey look like?
No, I was with Foxes for 13 years, really. Worked my way up to a senior role. Sequence kicked in around 2001. And a lot of the guys that I grew up with in the business there, we'd all decided that, the change of emphasis of that business model wasn't quite what we were grown up to do, what we were brought up to do. And a lot of us just decided to depart and we all went our separate ways. I got a call from Connells, actually, because they had some problems in Dorset with their flagship office in Poole. And they wanted somebody to do new homes, and I'd done a lot of new homes at Fox's, and so I took that experience with me to Connells, and also ran their training school for about 12 months as well, bringing in new negotiators, bringing them through the system in the way that Connells wanted them to operate. But it was at that point that I went into development because we did a big flat development in Poole Town Centre with Bayview Developments.
Excellent.
And we had 18 apartments, which I think it was 4-month turnaround from launch to final legal completion. And Bill Buckler,
sounds like Bayview,
phoned me up and he said, it's probably the best achievement we've ever seen in one of our developments. Yeah. How do you fancy being a project manager? Do you fancy moving over to the other side? So we had a chat, and I thought, I was in my mid-30s at that point, and I thought, right for a change, really.
I never knew that.
Okay, over in Charminster in the old
excellent. I didn't realise
Banks
you were
building.
Very good.
Yeah. So that was a wonderful 5 years. That went sadly wrong because the property crash, 2007, 2008, affected so many people, didn't it? Particularly the smaller developments. And I remember a lot of us had our final day there, 1 August, and it was fond memories. There was never any ill feeling, but it was time to do something new again.
And how did you find? So we had a lot of complaints about estate agents that don't understand new homes. So where you said you had a background, you ended up doing a lot of new homes with Fox and Sons and then into Connells.
Yeah.
What's the difference? Why is it that some agents get new homes and some don't?
I think, well, firstly, I think the experience of being able to work predominantly in the second-hand market is a really good grounding for people because, particularly in some of the areas where I've worked, where, I've had a mix between urban and rural. So you kind of see the widest possible demographic. I think that's the first thing. But I also think that the way new homes are marketed needs to be very, very different. You need to sell the dream in many cases because quite often you're selling off plan. You're selling something that you can't demonstrate as ably as you would be if you were going to show somebody your house, for example. So that's the first thing you've got to really understand, which is why, as you know, Simon, we use really good consultants to help, put our marketing programs together in order to be able to fulfill that commitment, for our company, really.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I suppose that's quite interesting because I guess that's when a good salesperson comes into their own where they can sell something that isn't even in existence. Yeah. Perhaps that's the difference, is understanding the method of selling.
It's the method, really. It's completely different. But the most important thing that we always remember in the business is that, if we're competing with the second-hand market, and we are, in all of our areas, really, the most important thing for us is that we have to sell our product. People putting their own houses on the market can afford to speculate. A lot of people don't have to move. We need to sell to keep cash. It's a commercial entity after all, isn't it? So that means that we've got to be really positive about what we do.
Excellent. So then just jumping back, so Bayview, left Bayview, and then what were your steps from there?
Well, actually, I ran my own business for a couple of years with the commercial director at Bayview because Chris left at the same time, and we sort of pooled our resources really. Chris was really good on planning. He had a planning background as well as a commercial background. So we were able to help people with small planning applications. I then came in, having learned through project management at Bayview, the processes between getting planning permission, being able to bring stuff to the market. And so I was able to help people that were kind of relatively naive in that. And so we were able to capture just a very small part of that market. And of course, planning in those days, Simon, was vastly different. It was nowhere near as bureaucratic and onerous as it is today. But we did that for 2 years. Then I got the call from Morrish, which was quite difficult for Chris because he had a big decision to make. I continued with Chris while I was at Bayview for the first year or so, thinking that maybe I could do the two things together. But the business that I had with Chris took off really well, and I couldn't commit to both at the same time. And because Morrish had given me a really good opportunity, Chris was happy to go on his own. And so we parted as friends, and I became completely committed to Morrish sort of 2 years afterwards, really.
Excellent. And so what was the role that you joined?
History.
Excellent. And what was the role that you joined Morrish?
Well, they didn't have a sales or marketing department. They did everything through subcontract. So they asked me to set up. They asked me to come and set up a department, manage it, and see where it took us, really. And again, it was a vastly different model then to what it is now, because we were completely beholden to estate agents at that time, because all of our developments when I joined were agency led. They didn't have an appetite to want to do anything standalone. And so we just changed the emphasis of that slowly. And the biggest departure really was making the decision to go standalone at Poundbury, which has always been Morrish's flagship office for development for 30 years. And we decided to do that. And, that galvanised us, made us completely independent and allowed us to have much more control over what we were doing, really.
Okay, and so it's quite interesting. There's a couple of clients actually that are going through that shift at the moment.
Yeah.
Moving away from being estate agency led to having that internal operation.
Yeah.
What difference did that make for Morrish as a business?
I think it became more cost effective. I think the first thing was we realised that we were spending a lot of money with agents, and we weren't always sure that we were getting value for money. Sometimes, and we mustn't dismiss it, because we still use agents today, of course. But I think the most important thing is that we're able to take control, strengthen our own brand as a result of it. Because you know what it's like, Simon. You know, if you're agency led, they want to stick their stuff up everywhere on your development, and it kind of dilutes really you and what you're about. So it was a change of emphasis, which allowed us to profile ourselves, you know, in a sort of a more independent, rigorous way, which allowed us to transition from Morrish Builders to Morrish Homes. Excellent. So that came as a consequence of it as well.
So taking back control. It's like a
Take control, Simon, yeah.
Brexit mantra. Excellent.
Absolutely.
And so to Morrish, what does Morrish look like today as a business?
From the time I've been there nearly 15 years now, and we were still a very much a family business, a very local Dorset family business when I joined. And we've now become kind of a regional developer. We've come out of the building sort of mindset into the development mindset through, you know, the transition from Morrish Builders to Morrish Homes. That's given us the opportunity to become, you know, regionally based. And so our spread is anywhere from Hampshire, because we're working with the Ashfield estate in North Baddesley, and we go all the way west down to Cornwall in UK.
Which is a big patch.
Which is a massive consideration, yeah. Yeah.
And how do you find, so people that listen regularly will be fed up of me asking this question, but so I was told my first day in house building, a house builder is a sales orientated business that happens to be in the business of building houses.
Yeah.
And typically the house builders that struggle are the ones that don't understand that. How have you found that at Morrish? Was it an easy journey? Obviously they asked you to come and set up the sales and marketing department, so you'd assume there was a desire there.
Yeah.
But how have you found that, trying to get the business on board and trying to get everyone to be thinking sales first?
The most interesting thing, great question for Morrish, this, because we've just mentioned the transition from Morrish Builders to Morrish Homes. Morrish Builders, at the time I joined, had joint managing directors, Steve and Dave Morrish. Steve being the principal in the office, Dave being completely in control of the build. Steve could never get Dave to change his mindset from being a builder. It was only when Steve decided to expand the management team and bring others in that had been in development more than we had before, that Dave got to see the importance that we were a development company. And the delivery team meant sales and build. And that's when we were able to change his mindset. That's when, through that changing mindset, we're able to turn ourselves from the builders to the homes. So it took quite a long time, but you know, subtlety worked in the end.
Yeah, excellent. Well, 15-year project.
15-year project, Simon. Yeah.
So Morrish today, you know, what's the volume output that you're looking for a year? Obviously, you've mentioned from Cornwall across to Romsey.
Yeah.
Like, what's the aspirations for Morrish?
I think our biggest problem is closing the gaps, because at no time in my whole life there have we ever had sort of more than 5 or 6 selling outlets at once. And so to be a real sustainable regional developer, you need to keep feeding the machine, don't you? And that's been one of the biggest challenges for us. In terms of numbers, we're on the small side of regional development. Our business model dictates that we do about 100 units a year. We're sort of a £50 million business, really. But we do a lot of commercial development as well. I think people forget that, you know, in the earliest days of Morrish Builders, we did a lot of business parks, and we still retain interests in a lot of those. Rented out lots of commercial units, and we've got £1 million a year income just from what we let out. So that's a really good legacy for us. And so when it comes to the big consortium developments that we're involved in, we're well versed in, mixed use planning, and how we have to deliver commercial property alongside the residential stuff.
Excellent. And to hit those numbers, a key part of Morrish's success has been the partnerships to give you that consistent level of output. So, Morrish as a business, you're renowned for your strategic land partnerships, including with the King himself.
Yes.
And typically these partnership opportunities, they're led more by the land team, but I know that you get very involved in the partnerships and you influence those opportunities. So talk to me, what does partnerships mean for a business like Morrish? And how do you go about gaining these sorts of partnerships? So for other house builders that are listening, how can they get involved in these sort of opportunities?
Oh, I think probably the most interesting thing to say initially is that the story with the Duchy of Cornwall is really interesting. It came about because Morrish did a very small development just outside of Wareham, and King Charles, as he is now, was putting together a working group for the Poundbury Master Plan back in the early 90s. And he was looking for sort of primarily 3 development partners to undertake the consortium work. They found CG Fry in Dorset quite quickly. Another similarly family-run business, great credentials, and still retain those. And because the first phase of Poundbury worked so well with CG Fry, the Duchy wanted to ensure that they could get a like-minded company to partner with them for at least the medium term. And so the Duchy did their rounds and came across the development that we had completed in Wareham, and found out that we had done it. Contacted Steve Morrish randomly and asked him to go for a meeting at their farmhouse in Poundbury. And they gave Steve the opportunity to look at the model, look at the master plan, look at the way the phasing was set. And through that, we decided to, take advantage of that opportunity. And that was in 1997.
Excellent. And obviously Poundbury's been an amazing development for you as a business, but that's also led to other strategic partnership opportunities, has it? That reputation, that model that's acted as proof for partnerships like the Ashfield partnership. So tell me more about that, how that came about.
Well, I think firstly, before the Ashfield came about, the success that we'd all had and are still having really at Poundbury got the Duchy to talk to CG Fry and Morrish about the Nans Leaden development on the edge of Newquay. And Nans Leaden is Cornish for Broad Valley. So we went down, had a meeting with them, and decided that we would at that point become regionally based as well. So we set up a concern down in Nans Leaden to partner with Fry's to do the first developments there. And Wayne Homes have also been involved down there as well as the third developer. But that's over 10 years ago now. So the success of Poundbury allowed us to go into Cornwall with the Duchy. And in those days, the Duchy had a development director called Tim Gray. Tim Gray had obviously very close links with the royal family. And as a consequence of that, with the Mountbatten estate over here in Romsey and the Knatchbull family, Tim retired from the Duchy, became consultant for the Mountbatten estate, and out of the Mountbatten estate was born the Ashfield, where it was going to be a 3-fold development process from Lusborough Green, which we completed with Wyatt Homes about 5 years ago, to move on to where we are now at Mountbatten Park, Hoe Lane and North Baddesley, to hopefully end up eventually with the largest of all, which will be Whitenab, which will be about 1,100 units. So that model with the Ashfield was born out of Tim's understanding of how the consortium would operate well at Poundbury. So it's a similar model.
Excellent. And it reminds me, so we were shooting with Thacum last week, Julian from Thacum, and it's a very similar story. They've ended up with partnerships, Wellborn, locally being one, really successful partnership. And I suppose the similarity there is that it's all about these stepping stones.
It is.
In that if on day one, Morrish had set out to try and strike a partnership with the Duchy, it would never have happened. But it's these little stepping stones, that development in Wareham, that led to that, which has then led to the Ashfield partnership. And it's amazing seeing those, seeing how you end up at these amazing opportunities. And I suppose it's that realizing that every development you've got is super important. It's not just important to the business to make sales, but the future success of the business and future opportunities. And it's something that I think, not just in house building, but a lot of businesses could learn from.
I think so. I think we feel very much under the spotlight all the time. And what's fascinating about, the model that the Dutch have created, which has been taken into the Ashfield situation, is that we have very much an open book policy. We have executive meetings every month and we have to publish our results. So every sale that we end up doing, every completion that we end up having, it's all published. All the figures are published. So we know exactly what each other is doing. And that becomes, there's a pressure about that because, you have to perform. They want you to perform, and they will ask questions of you if you haven't been. So, we have to be really, marketing is critical. The way we present ourselves is absolutely paramount in being able to achieve the results that not only do we need for the company, but we need to present to, the consortium as well.
And that patch, so you must do a lot of miles in your car.
Yeah.
How do you, a lot of regional house builders, they'll have a number, whether it's within 45 minutes of the office or 30 miles or whatever. Obviously, for you guys, it's a big old patch. How do you cope with, or how do you manage sites across that geographical spread?
I think the biggest challenge is obviously the logistics of from Dorset to Cornwall when we talk about Nans Leaden, and right here, right now, we couldn't be doing what we are doing down there without Bradley's. So we are agency led in that environment. We had to find the right partnership for that, and Bradley's are probably as visible in the southwest as an independent agency as you're likely to get. And as I say, we've had a long association with them now. They've been with us from day one down there, and essentially they run the sales office. We pay them an all-inclusive commission, which covers all the right move staff, all the staff in the really, big expenses that you ever have to put into a budget plan. And so they take a lot of the pressure away. So although I was going down there perhaps once a week in the earliest days to make sure that, we got all our systems in place correctly, probably only go down there once or twice a month now.
Excellent. So again, partnerships,
Simon.
Yeah. So Morrish has got a variety of sites, some smaller, some larger. How does the strategy differ between these smaller sites and the larger and the partnership sites?
Well, I think firstly, Simon, it's challenge getting the smaller sites. I think the one thing that has been the most challenging for us in recent years has been to get those kind of standalone developments that every development company of our size craves for. And those numbers would be sort of minimum 50 units and probably a maximum of 100 that can run you through about 3 or 4 years. The land market is massively competitive, and this is where partnerships come into play again, because we need to be very visible in that market in order to be able to get the appreciation of landowners that are looking to do business with developers. And the land side is probably the hardest side of our business at the moment.
Yeah, and well, as you know, you're not alone. Land and planning for every house builder is, I think, the bane of everyone's life.
Absolutely.
So we're hoping for a solution shortly.
Yeah.
So, and talk to me about pricing. So I know that Morrish's approach and your approach to pricing is very different. You price pragmatically rather than heavy up front with loads of incentives. which is refreshing, and it makes complete sense. Why do you feel that this isn't the norm in the industry, and how has this approach worked for you in the past?
Well, I think again, sort of stripping that back a bit, I've always thought that markets are based on price. Any market, any commodity is based on price. It doesn't matter, what you're looking to buy. I think price point is essential. It's the first thing you look at. Whether you're going to a clothing shop, whether you're going into, a food store, you're always going to look at the prices and compare. And I don't think housing is any different really. And so, from an affordability point of view, I don't think it matters who we're dealing with within the widest demographic. I think price is always going to be the most important thing to people, and we get a reaction if we price well. If we don't, we're in danger of retaining stock, which will cost us money in a different way. And I think incentives can work, but I think essentially we get back to the same result anyway, because people that offer incentives are often raising their prices to cater for them. But I believe that strong headline prices allows you to turn your market quicker.
And it's interesting. I mean, the property market is a strange place, and actually I think we always say we could learn a lot from the automotive sector, and they've changed. The automotive sector has changed a lot in that they don't generally do deals anymore. The price is the price. If you try and barter, you might get a free tank of fuel. Obviously, if you're buying a car with fuel, but it seems to be that the property sector has stayed in this space of, well, we'll put 5% on and then we've got a dealing margin. Whereas actually, if there was this, I suppose, this collusion, as in, well, we just price everything to sell, then I guess the general public would know that isn't possible. And I suppose you've kind of obviously looked at that and thought, I don't go to Tesco's and negotiate on bananas, so why should we expect customers to negotiate on houses, and have gone in at a fair price that's then going to get the inquiries to enable you to sell, which, as I said, it makes a lot of sense, as opposed to trying to use incentives as hooks to generate the interest that you probably would have generated had you priced effectively in the first place.
I think so. I think what we say to our sales advisors, you've got to get people in front of you, because if you don't get an audience, you can't sell anything anyway. And to get that audience, I think you need a realistic price to begin with. It doesn't mean that we're able to stick to those prices always, because sometimes we have to reflect on the competition. It is competitive. It will always be competitive out there, and sometimes we will look to do a deal that might incentivize with flooring. I mean, flooring is probably the most common thing, because it's one of the heaviest expenses that anybody will have buying a new home. Because
and how does that work with the partnership sites? So, if they like to price with a fair margin for incentives, and you come in at quite a punchy price, does that then pull their pricing down? How does that work?
I think this is why, through the exec meetings that we mentioned, particularly with the Duchy, we have this open book policy, and so we try and work in the same way as much as we can. We all try and keep our prices as compatible as they can, the headline prices, in order to make sure that we use the incentivization side of it to our advantage. The headline prices in our consortium developments are not that different. So that kind of keeps the Duchy happy, because you get consistency then. And I think the public like it because they can see, the reasoning behind it. That also helps you with the negotiation, because if CG Fry was selling a similar house type, it's going to be down to specification probably more than anything else at the end of it all.
So talk to me then about specification. How important is specification on those sites? If someone's looking at a partnership site and there's going to be two other developers, how do you differentiate?
We've got to make sure that we have at least an annual review of everything we put into our houses, because trends change. We get different opportunities with suppliers as well.
I suppose you'd be putting avocado bathrooms into the Canberra houses right now, wouldn't you, if you hadn't have done that?
That's right, absolutely. I think the first thing is, if we go back to show homes, I think staging property is absolutely vital. And, we see a lot of magazine programs out there now, from all over the world, don't we? And it just portraying how important that is. So I think firstly, we need to have a really, really good show home concept. And I think if you've got a specification that is reflective of your market, because you understand the markets in which you're operating in, then those two things together should allow you to be successful.
Excellent. And so talk to me about, your approach obviously with Morrish for 15 years and prior to that in a estate agency. How has your approach to sales and marketing changed in recent years?
By using people that understand those changes better than I do.
Excellent.
I've never been a marketeer, Simon. I've always been, my background, as you know, is sales. So that's why we use people like you. That's why we have...
Checks in the post. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's why we've got, in-house support now, which is relatively new. We've only really done that in the last 5 years. Everything that we used to do was with external consultants. But it's good to be able to manage that from within as well. And for me, it's the interesting side of it, because it's a side that I'm not as familiar with. And smart marketing, digital processes now, social media, you can't underestimate the power of any of that. And we're seeing that, the importance of that every day, aren't we? And it will only increase.
Yeah, and it's interesting because a lot of people that end up in the sales and marketing director role are from a sales background and have that marketing bolted onto the end.
Yeah.
But I suppose when you think of the role of a director, to understand top level, the vision and the goal, and to have the team to deliver that. And I suppose now you've got that team, you don't necessarily have to understand everything about the marketing, but it's having a team that does.
You don't. I think you just need to know what you need to achieve, and then you try and get the people that you think can help you achieve it, give you the advice to enable you to do so.
Yeah.
That's how I think of it, really.
Yeah.
I never get too heavily involved in that in any board meetings, because, it's beyond my pay level, really.
Excellent. And what's right now, what's your biggest headache or pain point?
I think the challenges of changing markets, really. I think you've got to try and anticipate markets, because to price effectively, if we've got a release program, which traditionally would be 6 months before a practical build completion, you've got to try and anticipate what that market's going to do in that time in order to be able to get that headline right, to be able to then put your marketing programs together. So changing market circumstances is probably the most challenging, particularly now when we've just had a change of government. So it's quite topical at the moment, really.
Yeah, a bit of certainty for a while.
Absolutely,
nice,
yeah.
And where do you feel, on the counter, where do you feel the biggest opportunities are?
I think. Do you mean in sales and marketing, or do you mean in land? Or
in sales and marketing. Yeah, where do you think there are opportunities that maybe that Morrish hasn't taken up just yet, or opportunities in the wider marketplace?
I think you're helping us create those opportunities, because the hybrid brochure introductions that you've given us, I think will have a massive bearing on being able to get that engagement more personally with our client bank, really. Love the look of how that's going to work, and I think that will make us even more successful. We'll be able to probably segment markets more easily as a result of that, and we're going to be smarter with our buying power as well. I think our costs should become really, really effective as a result of what we're going to be able to do shortly.
Absolutely. So it's that digital space, I suppose, where Morrish has kind of recognised an opportunity.
Absolutely.
And as you say, the benefits of digital, the way that we see it as an agency is, digital should allow things to get better, faster, but also cheaper. And I think, there's a lot of agencies that are guilty of just fleecing clients. And, we for one, believe that with the tools that we've got, that we've built out like hybrid, there's no reason why, of course we could probably add more digits on the end, but it's about the long-term relationship, and I think that's where a lot of agencies unfortunately have taken their eyes off the ball. But, I think that's the benefit of tech. It should allow those budgets to go, stretch even further.
And I think what we've learned, and it is a learning curve. Every day is a school day, as they say, isn't it? But I think what we've learned with agency interaction is that it's really important again with partnerships, to go with people that really understand your business. I think we've had situations in the past, with all due respect to them, where we've gone to companies that have had a much broader base of clients, and they've not necessarily had the understanding of our business in the way that we would have wished them to. And sometimes you don't learn that until a little bit later. But now we feel we're completely aligned. That allows us to, have much greater opportunities in the market.
Excellent. Can I put you in my bag and you could do that's my new business pitch. Pretty
Absolutely.
much what you've just done there.
There you go.
I'll take you around with me. Excellent. Look, Tim, I really appreciate your honesty, and it's great, to have you as a client, and
thank you.
It's been great getting to know you personally as well. So I appreciate you taking the time out.
No problem.
Thank you very much.
Enjoyed it. Thank you, Simon.